Depression affects your ability to meet, date, and have relationships with women. So it's important to understand how it relates to your relationships with women and what you can do about that. The challenge with depression, as you probably know if you've ever experienced it, is not just how you interact within the relationship, but even having the motivation to try to find or meet or get into a relationship is often stifled by being in a depressive state. And as you probably suspected, depression really isn't high on any high-value woman's list of attributes she's looking for. Now, I know that's not something that you want to hear, and it's probably something you already know, but what we're going to do is focus on how to help you move out of depression and into a better state of mind that will allow you to get out there and start meeting women and interacting with them in ways that will make them want to get to know you more. And you might be wondering, who am I to talk about depression? And that's a good question and valid. And I will share my experience with depression shortly, which does involve my mom. We'll talk about that in a minute. If you're new to my channel, my name is Anna Jorgensen. Welcome to Just the Tip Tuesday. So just before we get into what you can do about helping yourself move out of or move through depression, let's look at what depression actually is, because sometimes you might think you're on the fence, like maybe you're not sure if you are depressed or not, or just unmotivated or lazy or whatever other terms you might refer to what could possibly actually be depression. So what is depression? Depression is hopelessness, helplessness, overwhelm, jumping to conclusions, self-labeling, undervaluing rewards, perfectionism. I got that one. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of disapproval or criticism, coercion, which looks like I should, or you should, me. Side note, I always say never should on anybody, including yourself. Low frustration tolerance and or guilt or shame. If you've experienced several of these signs of depression for any length of time, then yes, you may be depressed. And it may be low-level depression, or you could be really, really depressed. Either way, there are some things that you can do to help yourself move through depression. And depression has many causes, so don't blame yourself if you are depressed. It could be biological, it could be neurological, it could be psychological, it could be situational. That's part of my story. Or a combination of any of those things. The good news is depression is actually only 16% hereditary. So there's a chance that could be you, but there's an 84% chance that might not be you. Now, I also have to note that I am not a shrink. I'm not a psychologist or a therapist. I'm just a coach. So if you have had serious thoughts of depression or worse, if you thought about exiting stage left, I really encourage you to reach out to an appropriate support line or crisis line, because the world needs you. I know that is going to sound silly, but I believe that, so stick with me here. So if you've read my memoir, you know that I have actually experienced depression a few times in my life. And yes, at one point I tried to exit stage left when I was 15. Then I really thought about it again when I was 25, when everything was going great. A little bit more on that in a minute. And then very recently, when I was 45, well, fairly recently, I thought about it again when my little mom went to be with the Lord. So I do understand what it means to be depressed and to feel unmotivated and like life has no value. So I'm not there anymore, which means I can maybe give you some pointers that actually did work for me that might help you, or if you're watching this on behalf of someone else, that might help the person you care about. You know, depression can either happen because of something that happened to us a long time ago in childhood, or the effects of how we relate to the world from those events in childhood, or a situation in adulthood. Maybe it's the loss of someone we care about, or rejection by someone we really wanted to be with, you wanted to be with, for example. For me, I had a pretty traumatic childhood, And I don't want to go into detail here because then I'll definitely get flagged by the powers that be. But all the big things that could happen happened. And if you want to learn more about that, they are in my memoir. But let's just say when I was 15, my dad died when I was 12. And for a long time after that, my mom was pretty messed up. And she tried to exit stage right. No, left. She tried to exit. She tried to join my dad. And so that was hard on me. And shortly thereafter, I thought I might give it a go. And obviously it didn't happen because I'm still here talking to you today. And so, yeah, I get it. Then kind of the opposite happened when I was around 25. Things were going really well. Like I was at the top of my career. At the time I was selling real estate. And I was with a guy who was going to be my future husband, and we were happy, and I was fit and healthy and yada, yada, and doing well. And sometimes when everything is going well is when it kind of rears its ugly head because it's still there. And you think that you can accomplish all these things, and then magically it'll go away because of those external things that you've accomplished. But it doesn't. So at the very, height of what should have been the happiest time in my life, I was really depressed. And that's, again, when I didn't want to stick around any longer. So my ex-beau and a really good friend intervened and sent me off to this 4-day sort of intense counseling sob fest. Bring a box or a crate of tissues because you were going to need it. And that really helped me. It gave me a lot of tools to be able to work through the stresses and depressive situations of life that were going to come up again. And it didn't take away the sadness or the depression, but it helped me learn how to deal with it. And I'm going to share some of that with you today. And incidentally, a lot of the tips and tricks I'm going to give you for dealing with depression today come from Dr. David Burns, who wrote the book Feeling Good. Yes, Feeling Good. So they weren't just my experiences, but they were also recommended by an authority on psychology on the matter. So kind of just to finish up with my story, I did pretty good. I went from 25 years old to 45 before I had another depressive incident that was pretty major. And that was when my little mom died. I actually just collected her from my sister. I was supposed to drop her off at the cemetery, but couldn't do it. And anyways, that was 5 years ago. And at the time, she was my person in the world. I mean, it's still hard to talk about. And I really wanted to join her. I even called my doctor and said, put a DNR on my file, because if I got lucky enough to get hit by a bus, then I don't want anyone bringing me back. So yeah, I definitely know what it feels like to be at the bottom and not want to be here. And while I still have moments of sadness, and even when I talk about my mom, I'm sad, there's a big difference between occasional situational sadness and ongoing depression. When you can talk about things that were painful in your life and not feel completely destroyed by bringing it up again, whether that's sad or angry, especially if you've been hurt by a woman, we are talking about depression and dating, or not numb, because that's another way that we can suppress our feelings and think that we're doing okay, but we're really not. So when you can retell a story and it's no longer painful or numbing, then you've actually really healed enough from it. The scar is still going to be there, but you can actually move on and maybe even learn something from the situation. Reality land about depression and thoughts. So thoughts are things. They are neurological, chemical, and physical pathways in our brain. So every time we have a negative or depressive thought, it reinforces that pathway and keeps us more stuck in those thoughts. And thoughts affect our life. Thoughts affect our feelings affect our behaviors affect our actions, and our actions, of course, affect our outcome. When we get the outcome, it may serve as a loop going back around again, because if it's a bad outcome, because the original thought wasn't positively serving us, then we're going to continue in that spiral to the bad place. Let's call it the bad place. So the first place we have to think or change is our thinking, which is, yes, difficult. I know it is. I've been there. Remember, our thoughts create our beliefs and our biases. So when we have negative thoughts that don't serve us, they are not objective reality. I'm going to say that again because it's that important. Your thoughts are not objective reality. Your thoughts are not objective reality. So if your thoughts are not objective reality, and our thoughts create basically our life because of mood, action, outcome, then you need to change your thoughts to have a different belief, to have a different action, to have a different outcome. All right, I won't go too much more into that. There's a lot of that in my Wake Up to Love program. If you're really clinically depressed, it may trigger you. So I don't know that I would advise taking the program if you're in that place. In the meantime, solutions to depression. And I can't say these are going to work for everybody, but some of these worked for me and they've worked for others that I know who've had depression. Sometimes cognitive therapy works, sometimes self-help works or helps, and sometimes medication helps or a combination therein. You need to actually talk to your doctor about what route or potential routes are best for you. But you're here for my take. Number one, think positive. Okay, so there are some people, I think it is, what's his name, who did the 4-hour work week? Tim Ferriss, is that his name? He actually says, don't think positive. Like, he actually doesn't say that, but he says, if you think too positive, you're going to be disappointed all the time. And I get that. But there's the other end of the scale where you're always thinking so negative that you expect negative outcome and you're going to get negative outcome because it affects your feelings, behaviors, actions, outcome. Thinking positive isn't to be all Pollyanna about everything in life. You're not going to necessarily go straight from depression into, super positive Peter. Oh, hey, Peter, thanks for the hashtags. Little side note there. Anyways, but you might step up one little bit and instead of catastrophizing, think, okay, wait a minute. Is this actually true? I'm going to give you some more specifics on what you can ask yourself to help you get through certain episodes of sadness or depression or negative thinking. Just know right now that negative thinking contributes to depression. So some of the questions you can ask yourself to turn a negative thought around, and it doesn't mean you're going to turn it, 180 into a positive, the opposite positive. It might, but let's start with baby steps. But you're going to ask yourself these questions. This thought or this belief I'm thinking, is it really true? Is it really true? Ready for this one? How might it not be true? Challenge yourself to find out, to think about, to brainstorm ways that it might not be true if it's negative. Now, if it is true, number 3, if it is true, what could be the silver lining? What could be the positive outcome or positive silver lining of this thing happening or of this thought or belief being true? There's a positive in there. I guarantee it. I even have positives on, so there you go. Number 4, if it is true, what can I do about the situation? What can you control? What can you control? Right? You can't control everything, but there are certain things that are within your control. One thing that might be in your control is how you perceive the situation. You still have control of your thoughts, believe it or not. And number 5, if there's nothing I can do, how can I learn to live with this? How can I learn to accept what is? How can I embrace what is? How can I create a silver lining? I know these are hard questions. I know they are. The next thing you can do is to correct your distorted thoughts. So now we realize that some of the things that you're thinking aren't actually true. They're just habits. They're habits of thought. So to correct distorted thinking, you need to know what your distorted thinking is, of course. So some examples of distorted thoughts, maybe keep track and comment about how many of these you might have experienced. If you're brave, no judgment, please support each other in the comments. This is a safe space. All right, examples of distorted thoughts. All or nothing thinking, overgeneralizing, always or never, even if it's the first time this thing has happened. 3, a mental filter that only collects negatives. 4, disqualifying positives. For example, rejecting sincere compliments. 5, automatic negative conclusions, including assuming and mind reading. No one's guilty of that here. 6, magnifying self-errors and minimizing self-wins. So of course, this is when you do something that's actually really good, maybe you get a compliment, but you find all the reasons why it's not good enough or it's bad. So this would be, for example, if you've done something that is a mistake and you just completely exaggerate the meaning of it, that for you or for others. Or you've done something that's actually pretty good, but you downplay that and only find the errors in what you could have done better. 7, emotional reasoning. So you look for reasons for and justify negative traits. So let's say you feel guilty for something or just in general, or shame in general. So you automatically assume that you're a bad person. 8, bitterness for guilt and judging self and others. 9, labeling self instead of behaviors. So instead of saying, I did such and such that wasn't a great thing, you say, I am such a terrible person. 10, over-personalizing everything. Everything's about you, even though really everything's not about you. In fact, almost nothing is actually about you, or me, or anyone. So I'm going to go into some examples of overgeneralizing and all or nothing thinking. I always mess up. I never get it right. She always ignores me. She never texts me back. All women are gold diggers, hoes, biatches, etc. No women are trustworthy, worthwhile, worth the squeeze. She'll just reject me. I'm such a loser. I'm too broke, poor, short, ugly, insert any other negative. No woman will ever want me. Some of these distorted thoughts probably feel a little familiar. If any of those felt a little familiar, note it in the comments below. You guys, you're not alone in this thinking. So when you share your thoughts, other guys can relate and they don't feel alone either. And you won't feel alone seeing the other comments. But here's the thing. Feelings are not facts. Feelings are not facts. We all look for evidence to support our belief systems. That's called biases. We all are biased. We look for information and evidence that's going to support our beliefs because whether or not it's healthy, it makes us feel safe. Unknown is unsafe psychologically. So a lot of our negative feelings are actually mental distortions. So you might want to ask yourself, if this thought wasn't true, what might that evidence look like? Did you know that about 80% of people who experience depression feel defeated, defective, deserted, and or deprived and have low self-esteem? Probably feels about right, doesn't it? Now, here's the thing. You're going to like this one. You know how everybody says it's all about what's on the inside and nothing you do or say will influence how you feel about yourself? You just have to know it? Well, that's partially true, but I don't believe that's wholly true. Not wholly as in, but wholly as in totally complete. So even though, in essence, that's true, sometimes the way we find self-esteem is by learning how to build trust within ourselves. And the way to do that, you're not gonna like this part, but the way to do that is by getting out of our comfort zones. Life begins outside the comfort zone. And by trying new things that are outside your comfort zone, doing so actually releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter that feels good. It's the reward chemical thingy that motivates you to continue moving forward to achieve other new things, other actions. So dopamine is released when we're actually physically moving forward, which often happens when we're actually taking action to do something that's going to improve our life. But it also is released when we do those things, especially if we congratulate ourselves for any little step forward. It's actually the moving forward toward a goal that feels best, even better than actually achieving the goal. That feels good, but we get momentum by doing. And here's the tough part. You can't create the motivation to take action. Taking action creates the motivation to continue taking action. So it's kind of the, I did a video, if I can find it, I'll link it. Oh no, it's in my Unshakable Confidence System, which isn't actually advertised anywhere. You got to get my Instant Confidence free cheat sheet, and then it takes you to a page where you can get the Unshakable Confidence System. Anyways, there's a technique there that will help you move forward to take that first step. And whether it's about confidence or anything else, it's going to get you through that initial resistance to doing it so that you can build the momentum to keep going. The more momentum you have, what is it? A thing in action continues in action, no thing in motion. That's it. Tell me in the comments, give me that quote. An object in motion stays in motion. Who said that? Let me know in the comments. Somebody knows. I know you know. Now, the other thing about moving towards a goal, not worry about the ultimate outcome, the only goal being just to start taking action, is doing that actually does help you build up your self-esteem. And when you build up your self-esteem, there's a lower chance of staying in depression. Hardest part is getting started. And again, my Wake Up to Love program does have a step-by-step daily plan and weekly and monthly plan for you to take those actions in small, manageable bites. So you don't have to eat the whole cake. Okay, I'm not going to put a dirty in there. I'll refrain in this video, maybe. Anyways, small steps will get you there. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about accountability. A lot of times when we're depressed, we don't have the capacity to hold accountability for ourselves. It's just too much weight for us to carry on top of all the other things that we're carrying that got us to that place in the first place. But if you accept accountability for yourself, the fact that you feel the way you feel, not because of what anyone else has done or said to you, or your circumstances, then you are moving towards freedom from the control that depression has on you. When you accept accountability that you're responsible for your own feelings. Now, again, if it's medical, if you need medication to help your actual physiology and neurology get back on track, then that might be part of the program you need to include. But I'm just talking about the stuff that you can do. You can do on your own, at home, or wherever. So here's an example. So if someone has criticized you about something, instead of instantly taking it personal, personalizing it, and agreeing with them and thinking that you're just a loser or you're worthless, instead ask yourself if it might actually be true or if it might actually not be true. Try to be objective about it. And if it is true, instead of beating yourself up about it, you can evaluate whether or not this is something that you want to change because it'll benefit your own life. Never change for someone else. Always only ever change for the benefit of yourself. And if you're bettering yourself, then you're going to be a better person in the world, and that's going to have an impact on everybody around you. So evaluate. Is it really true? If you can objectively say, yes, actually, okay, that is true. I am a little bit narcissistic or judgmental or bitter or always bringing up negatives. Is it something I want to own? Is that something that's working for me? Well, probably not. All right, well, what can I do about it? Now, if the thing they're telling you, if the thing you're being criticized about is not true, then you can disregard it and just assume that that statement has more to do with the person saying it than it does with you. And just a little side note on that is don't worry about trying to convince somebody to change their mind about you. They're dealing with their own stuff and they view the world through the perception of their own experiences. So they may not even have the capability of seeing you differently than what they want to see you as. Check yourself on that too when you're thinking about others. Now, if you have been criticized, you may overtly or internally express that anger. You may be someone who might have depression, but you're also running around with this internal rage that's just below the surface. And oftentimes those are the guys that say the statements, all women are, insert negative. So sometimes anger is valid, like it's justified and it's useful. Anger tells us that something's not working. But again, even if it's something somebody else is doing, we only have control of ourselves. So if someone is being a jerk to you, then you can be bitter and angry about that. Or it might be a little internal tap on the shoulder to say, okay, you need to actually speak up in this situation, or you need to not spend time with that person anymore, or you need to not go for those kind of girls because they're not nice. So we have to, you have to, I have to, you have to take responsibility for our part in what we have control over. And remember, we all have different value systems. So fair is relative, not as in the familiar relative, but it's relative to our experience versus their experience in the world. But that doesn't mean that you need to stay quiet. It just means that you need to, if you do feel that you should speak up and that's in your best interest, just do so respectfully. And you absolutely should speak up if your needs are not being met, or if your boundaries are being crossed, or if you've been misunderstood on a fundamental belief. Okay, now let's talk about how to get over depression, the things that you can do. 1, talk back to the negative self-talk. Be your own coach. 2, keep track of negative thoughts and work through them logically. Focus on real problems that have real solutions. Do something different. Doing equals dopamine. Make a to-do list. Plan. Take action. Record and debunk your distorted thoughts. For example, thought, she'll reject me. Distortion, I'm not good enough. Reality, we don't know if we're even suitable. Change your language. Change your shoulds to coulds. Change your need tos to want tos. Example, I should work out, but I'm too tired. Versus, I could work out, maybe I will after a nap. I could probably use that one myself, actually. Example, I need to get my finances in order. Versus, I want to get my finances in order, or I will get my finances in order. I can't approach unknown women. Versus, I choose not to approach unknown women at this time. Next one, before bed, imagine tomorrow's to-do list with positive outcomes. Next one, list the positive consequences of doing something you don't want to do, but you really should, really could. Catch me. And you could list the potential negatives of trying and then turn those negatives into silver linings. Okay, so those are the things you can do. Now here are a few other bonus tips that might be affecting your depression and are not your fault. None of it's your fault, but you can take responsibility. Anyways, here are a few things that you can look into that might be affecting you being depressed. Check your testosterone. Low testosterone is sometimes either a side effect or a cause of depression. What? I know. And if it is because your hormones are out of balance, well, that's a pretty easy fix. Even if it's not fully because of that, it can contribute to helping a lot. Next one is, of course, as mentioned before, you could get my Wake Up to Love program. It will take you step by step through it, but it also does look at some emotionally difficult aspects of life that may be a bit more triggering if you're really depressed. So caveat on that, you may want to work through it with a counselor. And actually, just as a little side note, a lot of the things in my program, the exercises, are part of what I created and used to get over crippling shyness and what I still use to work my way through difficulties in life and to achieving the goals that I want. Another thing you can do is to get professional help. And you can get help and help others by sharing your stories in the comments below. Help each other. Helping others actually also releases feel-good endorphins. So it makes you want to do more and has the side effect of helping others. So it helps you, it helps others, it feels good for both you and the other person who might need it. So if you have any stories to share about your experience with depression and dating or any solutions that have helped you, please help others by writing your thoughts in the comments on this video. As you know, one of the biggest problems guys face is not being able to get things off their chests where they feel safe or even at all. And it builds up and it gets 10 times worse by holding it in. So you can ease your suffering and let me and my other viewers know they're not alone by sharing some of your stories and experiences. Sometimes all it takes is talking about it and seeing that other people have shared some of the same experiences or similar problems. And by knowing that, it helps you move along in your healing journey. And the more you open up, the more you can start welcoming intimacy and connection in your life. So big hug, big love, and my little mom and I say, God bless and be well.